be. Alright. Oh, sorry about that, my camera died. I'll start from the beginning. Hello, my name is Jeremy Angstad, and I'm the Museum Services Manager for the Sandusky Library and Follett House Museum. And welcome to another Follett House Friday. If you were watching our previous video, I do apologize. My camera died on me. I wasn't expecting that, so I did a quick flip around. As I was saying, since we are on Halloween, I wanted to pick something that kind of fits with the Halloween theme. So all this month we're going to be picking things that either tie directly in with Halloween or are kind of spooky weird. So this week I picked some examples of Victorian hair art from our collection. And you heard me right, hair art from the Victorian era, which is for the most part the mid to late 1800s. So the first question I usually get when I talk about hair art is why? Well, hair art is it is kind of strange, but why did it happen? So the research I found, hair art kind of picked up, was published about it, talked about as kind of a craft activity in a couple magazines in the 1800s, and it really picked up, and it got very popular, and people would make bracelets. I didn't pull one out. We do have a bracelet both for adult and children in our collection. The first example I have of hair art I think is kind of interesting is this. So this is a watch fob made entirely out of human hair, which I think is kind of interesting. Or I guess this is a compass, not a watch fob. And where most of the hair for hair art came from was women who would brush their hair and they would take it and save their hair to use it later. So we actually have a dish from the Victorian era that was specifically designed to collect hair. So a woman would have this on, like by her mirror where she'd brush her hair, and you can see there's a hole in the top that they would take the loose hair from their brush and put it in here. And you can see there's a spot in the bottom where it could collect. And then once it was full, they could take it out and use it for hair art. So there are lots of examples of decorative hair art. But hair art started, also played another role in the Victorian era. The phrase that hair art and other things were called are Memento Mori, which is remember the dead. And that was the tradition of saving things to remember family members or friends who died. It could be a piece of jewelry that they wore, it could be letters, it could be other objects, but hair art started really falling into this category. And we have 3 examples actually of Memento Mori hair art in our collection. I'm going to save what's probably the best known one for last, because you've probably seen that before, but I want to pull some other ones. So this is kind of a higher end version, but this is a brooch surrounded by pearls and gold. And in the middle, it's hard to see, but that is a braid of human hair. So what they would do is they would take some hair from a person who was dying, cut it, and they would use it in a brooch. This is another one that would have been inside a locket. I'm going to hold them up separately because they're kind of small. So you can see this is very, just a little bit of brass and glass to hold the hair in place. It would be relatively inexpensive. And one part of like a locket, and then the other part, there is a Guerrero type. So it's probably going to be kind of hard to see. So Guerrero type's an early type of photography using silver nitrate and mercury to put an image onto metal. It would be a little bit cheaper than normal photography in the 1800s, so it was fairly popular. But you can see there's a picture of a person. So this, the clipping of hair I showed you belonged to that person. It was a way for them to kind of remember them. Probably the best known examples of hair art and Memento Mori are hair wreaths. If you're a person who goes to house museums like the Follett House or other ones, you've probably seen these before. So I'm going to hold up an example here. So this looks really decorative, and if you're looking at it from far away, it doesn't look you know, if you stand back here and you don't know it's human hair, it's hard to tell. But if you get kind of close, and I'll try and bring it closer to the camera, if you look closely, you can see it is made up of all human hair. There is a card on the bottom that has an inscription in German, and I have a translation of that. If you give me a second, I'll read it. This wreath to my beloved parents and siblings, our hearts will stay in love and sorrow forever together. Rosma Spranger and Carl Andres. So what that tells us is, and what's common in the hair wreath, is you would make a hair wreath and it could be made up of lots of different family members who either passed away, so you take a little bit of their hair and add it to the hair wreath so you always have something to remember them by. Or if you have a family member who is, you know, if you're in 1860 and you have a family member who moves to California, there's a good chance you're never going to see that person again. So you would take a clipping of their hair before they move to add it to the wreath to help remember them by. It is interesting that this caught on and this stayed popular until the late 1800s. The other type of Memento Mori that kind of falls into the weird, creepy category is death photography. Now we have one example of death photography in our collection, though I didn't bring it out, as a picture of a person in a coffin on church steps here in Sandusky, surrounded by their family. So death photography was taking pictures of people, sometimes in their coffins, but they also would do stage photography with people where they would take a person to a studio, or the people would bring the equipment to the house and try and position the person or make it look like they're asleep, was a more common one, or being with their family. You don't see a lot of that style of death photography in adults, but because you had so many children dying in the 1800s, dying very young from different diseases that they couldn't stop and couldn't treat, you would death photography for children in a more sleeping position, being held by their parents, or even at times like standing with their siblings. There are examples out there, was fairly common, and that was part of this, like I said, the Memento Mori tradition. It's all very strange, and to us today, it's different, but you have to remember, you know, photography is cheap. All of us, or almost all of us, have a cell phone, which is a camera that you can take pictures all the time. In the 1800s, a lot of people didn't, you know, most people didn't own a photograph. It was a business where they would come, you would get a family portrait taken. And there are times where you wouldn't have time to have a child photograph before they died. So your only choice was really to kind of do the death photography. Or, like I said, the hair art that we have here. So that kind of concludes this week's Follett House Friday. I apologize again for our brief interruption there where my camera decided to die on me. But I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you join us next week for another Halloween-themed Follett House Friday. If you have any questions, I will answer them. If you ask them during this video, I wasn't able to have, because I had to change cameras, I wasn't set up to be able to watch for comments and questions. I will answer them afterwards. Or if you're not watching this live, as always, leave your comments or questions, and I'll be happy to answer them. So thank you for joining us, and enjoy your weekend.